Motherfucker.
Oh, wait, thank you. You are so professional. Roger Meadows says, Massey in mourning over wife, the Mossad deleted. Oh, Roger. SS, space exploration is just colonialism in space. The colonizers should have stayed home. Joe Biden has weapons grade dementia. No new normal. The Fed Nazi group marched to Nashville. Obvious feds in the matching khakis and masks. That's right, hobo genius. Jesus. All right, Kathy Looney. Vermont Senator Peter Welch is on board with ousting Biden. And Sparky, remember Putin was on the fence about invading Ukraine until he heard Kamala's speech at the Munich Security Conference. How scary is Kamala? Sparky! Good to hear from you, Spark. Sparky, every time someone says that Israel is our only friend in the Middle East, I can't help but think, before Israel, we had no enemies in the Middle East. U.S. missionary John Sheehan. Angie Hermit, he did it again! Blinken. Sparky, to allay all your fears, remember Biden's still the most competent member of his administration. Sparky, Double X Stone Farm, I wished you'd be more supportive of RFK Jr. Double X, I hear ya. Thank you so much for your support. I haven't seen anybody cover when Biden said that the #1 cause of death for children in the U.S. is by a bullet last night. Skinny ribs, I didn't see that, Skinny. And then Carl Jung said, to the degree you condemn others and find evil in others, you are, to that degree, unconscious of the same thing in yourself. Sonic Warhol. Wow.
So I called Rachel Maddow evil.
Go ahead, back to Jimmy.
I called Rachel Maddow evil for, well, we're going to get to that point. I'm going to show you. So, so that's, but what if you don't act on the evil and you're unconscious? That's the thing. Because Jung said that everybody has a Nazi in their unconscious. Yeah, but what if you don't act on it? Anyway, over to Steph.
Okay, back over to Steph. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, when Steph. All right, so let's see what I got here. El Presidente music, Mark Finch. Thank you, Mark Finch. And let's see here. Oh, no, you don't have to miss Kurt. Kurt will be back, ladies and gentlemen. And why did that? Oh, you know, have you ever found that sometimes Rumble closes on you? Rumble closed on me. Not sure why. I did not close out Rumble. New window. Okay, Jimmy, we're ready. Just so you know when I say that.
Oh, really? You're out of, they don't have any?
Yeah.
What happened?
That's just how it rolls. We have I've read all of them. One just in. Oh, so Brooke, RFK Jr. is an IDF. Gotcha. Steph wasn't ready to rumble. I was ready. Who said that? Let me see. Where are you? I'm going to find you right now. I just saw that. That was Bovis Son. Thank you, Bovis Son. I've heard that Austin was taken by the shit lips. I don't think so, Bev Bill. I don't think all of it.
I don't think the comedy scene was.
Hopefully, right? Oh, I did not hear that she died of an acute allergy brought on. That's crazy. You're all very funny in this chat. I just can't read a couple of them. I can't read that one, Tuco 987. My gosh. Or No Jabbers. What is going on with you? Or Bill Brothers. Wow. Boy, you're all a little out of control on this
Okay,
Rumble.
ready?
Finally, Jimmy, I am more than ready. Back to Jim Jam.
So we have a guest with us. Craig Pasta is the co-host of the Convo Couch, an independent talk show discussing and analyzing the daily news cycle and featuring up-and-coming grassroots personalities. He's also has a new show called Pasta to Go, where he dives into the world of food and culture around the globe. Please welcome back to the show our pal Craig Pasta Jardula. Hey, Craig, how are you?
Doing good, Jimmy. How about yourself?
Good. Where are you right now?
I'm actually just flew into Florida last night. I'm attending a event this weekend with Kim Iverson, and then I'm off to Nicaragua and then to Venezuela to observe that election.
So now the reason why we have Craig on for this story, because this story is about election integrity. So they passed this new bill in the Senate. In the House. It's called the SAVE Act. Their Speaker, Mike Johnson, he says the SAVE Act will safeguard our elections by ensuring only American citizens vote in federal elections. And I just say, why is Mike Johnson such a complete racist and a homophobe and an anti-Semite? And I know I have the rest of the list somewhere, but he's all those things. If you're asking for, so here's what he says it'll do. He says this act will require state election officials to ask about citizenship before providing voter registration forms. Boy, that seems very racist. Requires an individual to provide proof of citizenship in order to register to vote in federal elections. It allows state officials to accept a wide variety of documents that will make it easy for citizens to register to vote in federal elections. Also, it provides states with access to federal agency databases so they can remove non-citizens from voter rolls and confirm citizenship for individuals lacking proof of citizenship. Wow. How dare you demand someone tell you where they are from when they're entering the country? That's what I say. The last thing you want to do now is come up with a reason for them not to become soldiers. Am I right? He's a little bit more. He goes, direct the Department of Homeland Security to determine whether to conduct removal proceedings if a non-citizen has been identified as having registered to vote in federal elections. Require DHS to notify a state chief election official whenever an individual has been naturalized to ensure our newest citizens are able to exercise their right to vote. Wow. And then give them a credit card and free medical. That's the guy you're going to vote for, right? So, by the way, Elon Musk says those who oppose this are, in all caps, traitors. And
got hairy legs
for traitors
that
again?
turn
that's stochastic violence.
Blonde in the sun.
So,
what is
Craig,
that?
the reason why I have you
and
on
the kids used to come up and
because
reach
you're an
in the
election
pool
integrity
and
specialist.
rub my leg down.
You
so
found
it was
out,
straight and then watch the hair
most other
come back
countries
up again.
ask you to.
What?
Well, aren't people in fact think it's crazy that they don't demand an ID? Is that correct?
Yeah, when I was in Nicaragua, there was one of our tour guides asked me several times. They really don't let you vote in the United States without an ID, because in Nicaragua you had to have an ID to vote. And I kept telling him, yeah, you don't need ID to vote in Los Angeles. You can vote without ID. And he said, why don't they just make it easier to get an ID if that's the complaint from the Democrats saying that a lot of people can't get access to get an ID? He was just dumbfounded. And whether I was in Colombia, Brazil, Peru, Honduras,
Nicaragua,
Nicaragua, you need an ID to vote, and that's just plain and simple.
So, and those people in Central or Latin and South America, I don't know where Latin America is. I know where Central and South, but I know but according to Dan Quayle, they do. He was glad he paid attention in Latin class. And he also was, when he goes to the Arctic, he hopes he can speak articulately. Anyway, that's an old Rich, what you call it joke. I'm blanking on his last name. So they think it's crazy that we don't have, and I also think, now this is going to sound maybe crazy to some people, I think it's a bit racist to not demand voter ID because people say, well, I'm going to show you what people say in a minute. But you're assuming black people are so feeble that they can't get an ID. You can't, first of all, you can't rent a car without an ID. You can't rent a hotel room without an ID. You can't ride on an airline flight. You can't make an airline without an ID. There's almost nothing you can do. You can't get a credit card without an ID. You can't buy cigarettes or alcohol without an ID. There's nothing you can't do. You have to have an ID for that, except vote. Except vote. And to say that black people are somehow so feeble that they can't get an ID. I flipped on this until I talked to you, Craig. I used to be, because they say it'll disenfranchise certain amounts of black people. And then you're like, yeah, but that's, and then I'm like, yeah, it is crazy. Here's what people said about this. So this guy says, if you did what you said you were going to do, we'd have closed the borders and have less of a need for the SAVE Act. 5,000 illegal aliens crossed the border today. So far, you lack a spine. But here's the even more interesting point. Paul S. Shapula says, the Senate is never going to prove this. You failed, Speaker Johnson. Your only leverage was funding. And you gave Joe Biden a blank check. Shame on you. You're part of the problem. So he's saying the House and the Speaker of the House has the power of the purse, and that's what you could have used as leverage to make sure the Senate passed this, and he didn't. So he knew that the Senate wasn't gonna pass it, and guess what? The Democrats just blocked the SAVE Act.
Yeah.
So is there any legitimate reason, Craig, for them to be against the SAVE Act?
I don't know if there's any legitimate reason to be against it other than to fundraise and continue to call your opposition racist, right? You know, it makes them, they're allowed to stick to the script that way. So I don't know why they would necessarily, vote against it. But I do want to make one important point here, Jimmy, and I have a lot of points written down to talk about when it comes to the SAVE Act. It won't fix the problem, because immigrants really don't vote in mass in national elections. They just don't. They hide in the shadows. They don't commit as much crime as American citizens. That's just the cold hard fact.
Right.
But what this is really doing, Jimmy, and I think people, need to, when they look into this, it's not so much about stopping immigrants from voting. It's stopping the establishment from exploiting an immigrant's ballot that's automatically given to them, right? So in Nevada, for instance, when you go to obtain a driver's license or re-register for your driver's license, you're automatically registered to vote. And not only are you automatically registered to vote, you get a mail-in ballot a month before the election. And in Nevada, they have vote centers, ballot harvesting, and drop boxes. So it's not so much, that they're going to stop immigrants from voting. They're going to stop the mechanism in which immigrants are exploited for their ballots, because you don't need voters to fraudulently swing an election. You just need ballots. And in today's age, with drop boxes and ballot harvesting legal in 27 states, it's easy to swing an election when you have mass mail-out balloting. And in states like Nevada and California and in New York, we lived in California for many years. They allow undocumented workers to get a license. They want them to do that. So therefore, if they automatically register them, they get a ballot. It's where does that ballot end up and whose hands, and then who has the ability to use it. So it's stopping the mechanism of exploiting the ballots of immigrants that come across the border.
Tell people what ballot harvesting is, please.
Ballot harvesting means that you or I or anybody else can hand in someone's ballot. In other words, I can take as many ballots as I want and put them in a drop box. I can grab my Aunt Betsy's ballot, my uncle's ballot, my mother's ballot, my
your
father's
neighbor's ballot.
Any ballots, right? So if there's loose ballots floating around, the way that you fraudulently swing an election is you get as many ballots out there as possible with no chain of custody. We have no chain of custody and a ton of ballots floating out everywhere because there's shotguns all over the place. So if I can take in 25 different ballots and I bought a bunch of ballots from somebody who went around and collected a bunch of ballots that were in the trash, or, when they try to return to sender and all those things, then I can sway an election because I have all these ballots. And if I can generate illegal immigrants' ballots or undocumented workers, then I can sway in a whole election because there's so many ballots out there.
I did see you saw the videos of the people doing the ballot harvesting. I saw, with Tim Canova's election, we saw them. There's no chain of custody. People are showing up with ballot boxes full of ballots in their trunk, putting it into a U-Haul. So, before 2020, the Democrats used to scream about the lack of integrity in our voting system, in our election systems. They don't do it anymore, right? But so I just want to show you. Here's a. I just going to jump to this part. Here's a black representative, and here's what he has to say about the SAVE Act.
Speaker, I rise today in support of H.R. 8281, the SAVE Act. For years, Democrats have called Republicans conspiracy theorists for stating Democrats want illegal aliens to vote in our elections, yet President Biden and every single Democrat in Washington want this bill to fail. If Biden and the Democrats want to clear up this conspiracy theory, Mr. President, when this bill passes, make sure you sign it into law. And on another note, I've been black for my entire life.
Really?
I'd like to bring up the most racist thing I've ever heard is the insinuation by Democrats that black and brown Americans are too stupid to get an ID to vote, just like everybody else. I call this the soft bigotry of low expectations. Figuring out how to vote in this country is a very low bar, and we could all figure it out regardless of your race, religion, color, or creed, and we should all want free and fair elections. With me today, I'm not going to pull mine out this time, but I have 6 forms of government issue ID. How did I acquire that? Personal responsibility in this country. I've also heard a lot about Jim Crow here today. I'm here to tell you Jim Crow is over, and I know it because my parents grew up in it. And I think it's actually insulting to those that actually experienced the ills of Jim Crow. Having an ID to vote in our nation's elections should be a requirement, which is why I stand before you today urging my colleagues on the left to support this bill. If you want secure elections, if you want your vote to count, vote for the SAVE Act. And you'll back the rest of my.
So this isn't as. So that's a black guy saying that it's actually racist and insulting to say that black people could, because that's what they always say. And I want to show you some video of the people saying that. Let's watch this.
This bill is essentially a poll tax because I am not aware of a single proof of citizenship document that does not cost an individual money to get it, unless we are requiring every state to provide one for free, and then it's an unfunded mandate.
Hey, why don't you just have people show their vaccine passport? You gave those to people for free. Why not that? Somehow I had to have a vaccine passport to buy a burrito. I had to have a vaccine passport to go have lunch. But to have an ID to vote is somehow a bridge too far for these motherfuckers.
Hey, Jimmy.
Yeah.
But by the way, one of the most interesting things that I found out in the 7 Latin American countries I went to observe elections, the grassroots wants IDs. In fact, they want more identifications for the individuals because they understand, and they're way more educated on their elections than we are, the citizens. They understand the easiest way for the ruling class to steal an election is to create more votes. If you don't have ID laws, then you can create more ballots and more votes that way. It's less trackable. You know, you can just, there's ways to steal an election if in fact IDs aren't brought about. So when you go to these other countries, it's the poor grassroots that are actually demanding that you have ID. In Colombia, they wanted like the verification, like the electronical thumbprint verification. They wanted that there because they understand if you don't have these voter ID laws and you don't present an ID, the ruling class can then create votes and steal an election. That's the crazy part about what we're talking about.
Here's some more from that same session of Congress.
Hypotheticals. It is under attack right now, right here with this very bill. Republicans want to throw up barriers because when people vote, they lose. Let me be clear. They don't want you to vote. They don't want to hear black voices, brown voices, LGBTQIA voices, young voices. Our fundamental access to our democracy is being politicized. And this xenophobic attack that we're debating.
So you're telling me gay people also can't get IDs? Not gay people, young people? Every young person I know has a driver's license. Every young person I know has to get an ID to go when they go to college. Every person young. But so it's not just black people. So black people somehow can't figure it out. This is unbelievably insulting.
Yeah.
If they said if she says comedians, I'd be like, fuck you. I know how to get an ID. Here we go.
They will make it harder for Americans to vote. My Republican colleagues will claim that requiring IDs is a small ask, but nearly 30 million people lack a valid driver's license, and about 15 to 18 million adults don't have access to documents proving their birth or citizenship.
So how did they get their vaccine passports? That's my question. How were you able to verify them when they got their vaccine? Somehow you did it. You were for that? I know she was for that. You know she was for that.
Yeah.
How were you able to verify them for their vaccines? So what do you say to that when she says 30 million Americans lack a driver's license? Maybe are those 30 million people who just is she counting children who aren't
That's
old?
what I think she's doing.
I think she's counting children who and people who like live in New York City who don't want to get a driver's license because they don't drive. She must be counting, and then she says 15 million Americans who lack the documentation to get a. How do they know that? How do they? You know, it reminds me of an old joke. You know, four out of 5 people who suffer from diabetes don't know it. Well, really, if they don't know, how do you? And if you know it, why don't you tell them? So how does this? How do they know that 15 million Americans? First of all, that's about as many people as they let in undocumented on a monthly basis in the United States. I'm exaggerating, but how do you think they know that? That 15 million Americans don't have a birth certificate? Is that what she's saying?
It's just an exploitation of poor people, which she's just trying to use. I mean, this is a tactic they've been using for quite some time, Jimmy, because a lot of Democratic voters, unfortunately, they think with their feelings and not their brains, and they don't do the homework there. And if you want to fix this problem, the 2 things that they talk about, number 1, they can't get an ID. Make it easier for them to get an ID. I keep screaming this because that's what it should be. And like you said, they made it easy for everybody to get a vaccine passport. Well, make it easy for everybody to get an ID. And if it's a financial thing, hey, it's a poll tax. Why don't you give us a working economy where we don't have to worry about the finances to go get an ID if you really want to fix this problem?
But they love to call you a xenophobe. They love to call. Here we go. Watch this.
For Republicans is for them to lay the groundwork to undermine the outcome of the presidential election, just as they did 4 years ago, just as they will again and again until they realize either the futility of this exercise or the republic crumbles. I pray for the former.
He's going to say, if you demand a voter ID, the republic will crumble. Did you hear? That's what he said.
Yeah.
So it's the exact opposite, right? So according to you, an election integrity expert, it's the exact opposite. That if you don't have some kind of controls on who gets ballots and a chain of custody, that's how you rig elections.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. I was just going to say, like, every election that I see and what we need over here has to be transparent, a strict chain of custody, and it needs to be publicly verifiable. And with the systems that are in play in the United States, it just doesn't happen that way. And this is why I think, Jimmy, that, you know, when we have selections instead of elections, the people's will is never, you know, brought to the forefront. It's always what the donors want because they can simply control who gets in and who gets out.
And here's the leader of the Democrats in the House, Hakeem Jeffries.
Only citizens can vote for the United States Senate. Only citizens can vote for the presidency of the United States. So this extreme MAGA Republican voter suppression bill is not designed to solve any problem on behalf of the American people. It is designed to jam people up and prevent Americans from voting. The extreme MAGA Republican voter suppression.
So what do you say? What do you say to him saying that it's going to jam people up?
Yeah, well, I think he should look up at the overall system of our elections and try to figure out why people got to stay at the voting spots for 6 to 8 hours like they did in UCLA.
Yeah,
and all these other spots.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's how you jam people up. You make them stand in line for hours and hours to vote. That's how, and they don't care about that, do they? They didn't care what had happened when it looked like Bernie Sanders was going to win.
So in 2004, I think it was James Baker and Jimmy Carter had a bipartisan convention, and they came out of that convention, this is Republicans and Democrats, saying the area that's most ripe for fraud is the mail-in process. Well, they put this mail-in process on steroids for the 2020 election, and they found an easy way to do what they needed to do, right? I don't want to, well, I can say we're not on YouTube, right? They found a way to fraudulently steal the election, in my personal opinion, from looking at it. And they don't want to get that mechanism removed away from them, because if they can control that mail-in process, and this is what this is about, when you look at the SAFE Act, it's about removing the mechanism in which ballots are just generated at a mass amount. If that's removed from them, I think they're just fearful that they'll lose a lot of elections where they have this in place, because a lot of these states, like Nevada, these laws were made an emergency faction during the COVID. Well, they made them permanent in some of these laws. It's not just mail-in ballots, it's mass mail-in ballots. So it's like everybody on the voters list in Nevada gets a mail-in ballot. So literally there was millions of ballots out there floating, never turned in. You know, they're just out there for anybody who wants to commit fraud, and especially the establishment, to grab a hold of and then make, push an election the way they want. So if they remove this mechanism from them, they're not going to have their way.
I think when again, it was talking with you when you told me how people in Latin America, wherever that is, they don't speak Latin, I'll tell you that. When they were outraged that you didn't have to have a ID, I was like, something's up. And then I saw a guy do a video where he went into black neighborhoods around the United States, and he asked them, is it hard for you to get an ID? And they looked at him like he had two heads. Like, what are you talking about? It's black people. Is it tough for black people? He goes, no, I got an ID. Everybody's got how can you do anything? You can't do anything without an ID. And that's what I was like, that doesn't seem crazy.
Yeah.
And I guess I would challenge the veracity of her numbers, her 30 million, 15 million number. I'd like to challenge that. Invite her on the show.
Yeah. I do think, Jimmy, that, the good thing about this is going to educate the public on how elections are run. Remember, the Article 1 directs the states to control the elections, right? Federal laws only guarantee voting rights, not procedures. And the good thing is of this particular bill, it's getting people's wheels and learning the system, how it works. The bad thing is it's not going to fix the problem. My friend in Nevada, Ellen Swenson, she's an election integrity activist. She did some numbers in 2022, and she saw that there were 40,000 illegitimate votes that were cast. Why? Because people who live in Vegas, they move on, they die, they don't live there, but they're still on the voter list. So they were mailing out ballots to people who weren't even living there, who weren't even alive. And literally a lot of your seats in that particular election in 2022, the Secretary of State one, that was decided by 12,000 votes. So you can just imagine, how you can really mess up an election or sway an election when you have mass mail-in ballots. And with ballot harvesting, you or I can take as many ballots as you want and put them in that drop box.
Okay. All right. Well, Craig Pasta-Jardul, I appreciate your insight and expertise on this, and I hope it wakes people up to what the real problem is. And I didn't know that. I didn't know that. All the stuff that they just gave out ballots, the mail-in ballots does seem problematic. I got it. Do you think they'll ever get rid of them?
Well, if they went back to the old rules of mail-in ballots, the old rules, Jimmy, were that every election, if you wanted a mail-in ballot because you couldn't make it to the polls because of an injury or age or sickness, whatever it is, every election you had to re-register for that ballot. Now it's different. In Arizona, in Maricopa County, if you voted in the last 10 years, you're on that list, a ballot's being sent out to you. So they don't clean these lists up at all. And I think in the case of Kerry Lake's election, about 1.8 million ballots were mailed out a month early. Only like 800,000 were turned in. So once again, you got 1 million ballots just floating out there. So it's not just mail-in ballots. It's also the way they create these lists to distribute the ballots. There's no chain of custody when they're mailed in, but there's also no chain of custody from the printing company when they're mailed to you. So there's so many different problems. When you go to Nicaragua, The chain of custody starts at the door. The ballots are there. They're counted in front of the people. So it's almost impossible to cheat and steal that election because it's done in front of the purview of the citizens. With mail-in ballots and mass mail-in ballots in particular, that thing is just obliterated.
And I want to show you, here's a list of all the countries, full or partially democratic countries that require ID to register to vote or cast a ballot on election day in all districts. For Iceland, oh, you know, those racists. Sweden, New Zealand, Denmark, Canada, Ireland, Switzerland, Finland, Australia, Luxembourg, Netherlands, the Nazis over in Germany, Austria, United Kingdom, Malta, Spain, irregularities, Uruguay, Japan, Italy, Cape Verde. Where is Cape Verde? Sounds like you want to go there for a vacation, right? And eat things that are green. It's in Africa. It must be a nice part of Africa to be called Cape Verde. South Korea, Costa Rica. Look at all. So anyway, Estonia, the Czech Republic, Colombia, Peru, El Salvador, Dominican Republic, Montenegro, Ukraine, frickin' Ukraine. Okay, Mali, Fiji, they have the water. Not as nice as you think it is. A lot of problems with the Fiji water. Anyway, so there it is. Kyrgyzstan. Okay. United States, no. Haiti does, but not here. United States, no. Okay. All right, Craig Pasta Jardula, thank you for joining us. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me on, Jimmy. I'll see you in Chicago.
See you in Chicago, pal.
Got it.
Okay, over to Steph.
All right. Thank you, Craig Pasta Jardula. Check him out. Pasta Go. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Wookie Goldberg. Amish. Thank you. Hannah, sir, whoever the president is, not going to save you. We have to save ourselves, especially by freeing ourselves from mental slavery so we can see how sad, toxic, dangerous this entire way of life is for us. Hannah, sir. Listen to him. Was his dumbass, smartass way of saying, you think Trump's so smart? Go vote for him then. Challenge accepted? ? I think you're right about that. Listen to him. You're right, already dead, 1967.
Is that what he was saying?
Yeah, listen to him. Was his dumb, smartass way of saying, you think Trump's so smart? Go vote for him then. Challenge accepted? Funny, already dead. Thank you for clarifying. Amish, thank you. The self-awareness conversation discovery is only true way to change things on the deep level we need. Staying on the political level is superficial and ineffective. We need to get to the whys. Hannah, sir. My favorite part of covering the Libertarian Convention in D.C. was seeing Pasta walk into the hotel lobby and immediately kick the shit out of a plastic bottle on the ground like a boss. Propaganda report. Voting is the least of your worries if you don't have an ID, but let's never talk about that. Nothing to cheer or nothing to see here. That's what you're doing. Okay. What does it matter who we vote for? They're all the same. The system is the same. It's a system we need to unmake. It's people's brain structure we need to affect and heal. Biden/Trump are not that different. Aim higher. You got that right, Hannah, sir. Thank you for that. What do I have over here? Thank you, Jimmy and crew. It's great to see Craig Jardula on today. Thank you. Oh, that was from Beauty and the Boomer. Thank you, Beauty and the Boomer. Jimmy, you should let Joe Rogan know about Dr. David Martin. Would like to see his message reach an even wider audience. Thanks for having him on your show. Netulism. Thank you, Netulism. And then my final one, maybe summer leave gave us the exact number of illegals in the country. Cornpop the Batter Dude. Thank you, Cornpop the Batter Dude. Let me see if I got anything else. Stand by. All right. Oh, what's this one? Yes, I got that one from Netulism. Thank you very much. All right. Jimmy Dore, do you need anything else?
No, you want to go commercial?
All right, let's go to break. We'll be right back.
You let it fall on the neighbor's car. Okay. Look at that! Look at that! Get the fuck out of here! Get the fuck out of here! It's fake! It's fake! It's fake! It's fake! It's fake! I'm sorry. I don't like fakes.
Hey, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there for more AM Joy and the rest of MSNBC. And click on any of the videos right here to watch the latest interviews and highlights. And you can get more videos from MSNBC for free every day with our newsletter. Just visit
Isn't it swell? The memes make themselves. They found a rabbi hole, tunnels and all. There's Jews in the walls. Isn't it bliss? The rabbinical grace soiling the mattresses. Well, let me tell you. If I were Rabbi Shmuley and diddle 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 digga digga diddle diddle dum, all day long I'd diddle little bums. If I were a Shmuley man, I'd peddle all my dildos, dreidel dildos, selling dildos with my daughter and her mum. If I were a Jewish Shmuley man, I'd be digging with a dildo in my bum. I'd wear a grotesque nose and go grab some goyim right on the nipple with a pinch. A Shabbos lap dance brace for the youngest mensch.
At this time, more than any other time, you know, revolution is necessary. It is necessary. Not only based on what has happened with the MOVE organization, you know, the babies that have been murdered, you know, MOVE adults that have been murdered, bombs being dropped on us, but past that to what is happening with all black people, so-called minority people, you know, money poor people. You know, this government, as has been said earlier, has waged war on us. But you know, something about us, particularly here in America, we don't really understand that. You know, we don't really know what war is. You know, for black people, for poor people, that people see as good, that they wasn't forced to do, that they didn't do to try to keep black people appeased, you know, and calm down so that black people wouldn't riot. A prison situation is a crystallized example of that. You can make phone calls in prison. They have movies in prison, but they don't have those things because they just want to be nice to prisoners. They have those things because they know damn well if they don't have, you know, people being able to contact their family, if they don't have, you know, facilities for people to sit there and watch movies, people are going to be frustrated, upset, and they're going to direct that frustration at them prison administrators. And they're going to have riots on their hands. You know, they're going to have people in them prisons turning them prisons out. That's why they have movies. That's why they have access to phones the way they do. And a stop to it when we don't like it, or encouraging it when it's something that's in our interest. You know, we have to call the shots. The people have to take the reins of this system and start dictating, you know, what we need, what needs to be done. And, you know, taking the initiative to do it ourselves. We can't rely on this system. I mean, you know, don't people see what's happening? Every single confrontation that MOVE people have been involved in, every single issue, you know, oppression, economic issues, every single issue facing our people, you know, is something that can be dealt with very, very simply. All people got to do is make their wishes known. All people have to do is stand up and say, listen, we're not accepting that. Unity is the key. Unity is the key to revolution. Revolution ain't nothing to be afraid of. It ain't nothing to shy away from. Revolution, contrary to what officials, you know, this system and those backing the officials running this system, you know, want people to believe that revolution means violence, you know, means blood in the street. I'm saying it can get to that point, but it don't have to be violent. You know, when people come together and take a strong stand on an issue, this government don't have no choice but to listen. Where you think they get their authority from? They don't have no power, but they do have authority to do certain things. Where you think they get it from? They get it from us, from the people. You know, they get it from us accepting the things that they do to be done to stop it. Then you have some people who want to then turn around and say, yeah, well, you know, it's the best we have, and want to make excuses. The time for excuses is over. It's over. You know, every man, woman, and child has to be involved in this revolution. Not only has to be, but is, whether you want to be or not. I mean, our babies gave their lives for this revolution on May 13th. You know, men, women, and children were murdered. And not just MOVE babies, you know. What about all of the young men, women, you know, children 8, 9 years old shot down on the street by cops, you know, by drug pushers? I mean, you know, where do you think that mentality comes from? It comes from this system, from the mentality of this system of getting over, you know, making a quick buck, you know. I'm saying that's where that needs to be done to stop it. Then, you know, what I want people to really, really understand is that it's past time. It is past time for poor people, black people, you know, to realize that this system has failed you. It has failed you. You can't get nothing from it. And what people got to do is withdraw our support from it and start doing for ourselves. That's what we got to do. You know, how long are people going to sit back and beg, you know, this government to do what's right when for hundreds of years all you've gotten is a slap in the face? All you've gotten is this government kicking your ass. That's all. That's all black people have ever gotten from this government.